Okay, my name is Bruce Yeates, and I enlisted in Sheridan, Wyoming. I currently live in Dayton, Wyoming, which is very near Sheridan. But I enlisted in the Army, and I served, after basic training in AIT, I was assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division in Vietnam. And then when I came back from there, I served a year and a half in Germany. In Vietnam, I entered the country in Cam Bay and was there long enough to catch a flight to An Khê, where the headquarters for the 1st Cav Division was. And I was only there for maybe 3 days or so. Went through some rappelling training and then was assigned to C Company of the 8th Engineering Battalion, which was C Company was a support unit that were used for some of what we were doing was landing zones and our demolition and chainsaws, basically, with the engineers. And I was in that unit for a while, and I was even in their motor pool at LZ Hammond, I think was the name of it. And then we moved north to LZ English, which was at Bong Song, and that's where I remained stationed the rest of the time in Vietnam. And I was while I was still at Hammond. It was interesting that in my basic training units, I was about the only one. I was only one of 2 that had college education, and most of them just didn't have much education at all in those units, in that combat engineering at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and so that's how I got assigned to that type of a unit. And when I was in LZ Hammond, I was visiting with the company commander there, and he said, "You have quite a bit of college. I want to see if I can get you in the headquarters company because they're short of staff there for surveying and so on." And so I did a road design for him in a sandbag hooch during the monsoon. When I forgot to tell you that I was there from December 1966 through December 1967. And so shortly after that, I was reassigned to the headquarters company of the 8th Engineering Battalion. And in that unit, I did surveying and other engineering type work. Throughout the rest of the year, I spent time, we built a bridge that was about 80 feet long, capable of handling M60 tanks and artillery units I'm not sure where it was even at. I think it was along the Cambodian border somewhere. But I kept getting reassigned to different types of projects, and there were several airstrips that combat mission type airstrips, like for C-7A Caribou. We had to build them in the field, design them in the field, and build them. The unit I was in was air mobile. All of our equipment was air mobile, and it was small, so it was difficult to build big sites like that. But I remember building one site that was north of Bong Song, between there and Da Nang, that was a C-7A Caribou airstrip. It was built strictly for a combat mission that was going on just right next door to us, and And we built it in the field in 5 days. There were, I think it was 5 soldiers that were killed on that job, and that was the only. We got Sky Beaver citations for that. In a couple occasions, I spent with some of the infantry units out in the jungle looking for complexes, tunnel complexes and things, but we had a dozer with us, and we'd just wander around and dig up tunnel complexes, and I was there to try to map them and do measurements on them and things like that. But outside of that, I did some work on building base camps for some units that were coming to Vietnam, and one was an armored unit, so it took a pretty big area, and that we were building a perimeter road and ran into a minefield. And another job that we had was clearing some of the mines on the highways for the convoys that were coming through there, and probably one of the most memorable times was when our ammunition storage unit went up in flames at LZ English, which was probably the largest ammunition storage facility in North Vietnam, in the northern part of South Vietnam, I mean. And it exploded for 3 days and had us pinned down, and it was probably 100 yards from it. But we had just finished building berms up the side of this, where all this ammunition was stored. I mean, these were rockets and, the helicopter things. And there was a large helicopter unit there. They got most of the aircraft in the air, but there were several of them that got destroyed, including a field hospital that was destroyed. And we were kind of pinned down for about 3 days with explosions, things like that. But the villages around there were damaged pretty bad. That was an enemy that got into the ammo storage and set it off. Oh, I don't know. Do you have any other questions?
I guess personally, and you can't really answer for all veterans, but personally, how do you feel about this state-sponsored event that they put on? And how do you feel the populace, the veterans as a whole, are feeling about this event so far, sir?
This event?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
well, it's the first time since was in Vietnam that we had anything. When I first came back from Vietnam, it was a time when I didn't wear my uniform because I got tired of the things that were going on, and I went back to university for 2 semesters and finished my degree, and at the University of Wyoming I didn't tell people I was in the military. That was 1.5 years after Vietnam, but it was in 1969. It was still going on, then. But because I had gone to Germany for 1.5 years, and that was pretty pleasant. I was in an engineering unit there, and my last few months of time in Germany was shooting on a competitive pistol team. I enjoyed that. I liked the Army, the military. It was, and it was nice to get away from the university for a while. But when I came back, I was ready for school, and I really enjoyed it. But I stayed pretty quiet about being in the military. There were some military people going to school at that time in an engineering college, and I visited with them. So, do you have a question?
I don't.
No?
I just want to thank you very much for your service.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I was in the military. I thought Vietnam um, was a good service. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people over there. Of course, the war part of it was not fun, but it was quite an experience in the military, and I enjoyed it.
Bruce, can you tell us a little more about your time at UW? Were there what is it exactly that made you feel uncomfortable about wanting to wear the uniform? What was going on there?
Well, University of Wyoming wasn't near as bad as some of the other schools, but just there was a lot of students that were against Vietnam, and some protests they weren't real big protest groups, but in traveling before I got out of the service, I learned that you had to be careful where you went in a uniform. Even I tried to fly everywhere, but I wore a uniform because the fare was half fare at that time for veteran or for soldiers that were flying, and so I wore my uniform. And in some of the places, Denver was bad. That the protesters would circle around you and call you names and spit at you and things, and we didn't dare do anything in retaliation. That the military warned us not to, and it was even worse when I returned from Germany, because the war was really the protesting was. I didn't see a lot of that. The military didn't show us a lot of it on the or in the news that we were able to get. We knew it was going on, but we didn't know how bad it was, and until we would travel to get home or something.
Did it surprise you?
Yes, sometimes. Most of the time, I was expecting it, so I did things to avoid it. But at the university, I never had a problem, but there were protests and things going on, and I didn't have any instructors, but that were against Vietnam, that let me know they were against it. So because I was mostly taking engineering classes, some of my instructors were veterans, and so they went pretty well there. There were other parts of the school that were worse than in engineering, but and then since that time after college, I got into the consulting engineering for 24 years, and at the tail end of my career, before I retired, I was county engineer and public works director for Sheridan County, and I managed a lake also, Lake DeSmet. But that's been my career, basically.
Do you have any health problems that you would relate to your Vietnam experience?
None that I really know for sure. I think there are some things, but I don't know. I've avoided the VA because I feel there's so many more people that are in need of service. I've just never felt comfortable going to the VA. I have never asked them, other than for the GI Bill for 2 semesters. I haven't tried to get VA services at all. The war, what's going on now is just such a tremendous drain on the VA system that I'm not comfortable in even asking for help. But I don't have any serious problems. I was fortunate in Vietnam to not have any injuries or knowing I never had to be medevaced anywhere or anything. I saw a lot of that, but it wasn't me. I visited with fellow that was talking at noon about his 1,000+ missions on a medevac chopper, and I thought, my goodness, how could you do that? So anyhow, I feel pretty fortunate to have pretty much gotten through it without any problems.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I was wondering if you wanted to tell your little, briefly, the story of the friend you made over there. You can talk to Adrian.
Yeah, when I was stationed at LZ English, we were building a new road around the part of the perimeter of the facility, and there was a group of little kids that would come by every day, and sometimes they'd take and do our laundry and things like that. And there was this one little girl that was about 8 or 10 years old that just wanted to know about the United States. She would ask me questions about Mount Rushmore or New York City or places I didn't know much about, but and we, of course, neither one of us could speak the language, but she was able to get across what she was interested in. And we visited several times, and she brought me a school book that she gave me. It was I could tell it was a biology book, but of course I couldn't read any of it. Her tremendous handwriting, and it was a kind of a neat little book, and she wanted me to take it. It was a book from her previous year, and she went to a Catholic school. It was interesting. Those kids that you could see out like that where we were working, you couldn't talk to them when they were in their school clothing. The girls wore a long ankle-length silk dress to school, and they were prohibited from talking to GIs, but when they were out like that, it was okay. And I ended up adding a schoolroom on their school, which was probably 5 kilometers away from where we were, but we built a room on the school for them, and while she was at that school, so I just kind of got acquainted with her, and she wanted to learn about the United States and what it was all about, and how we lived. And this is a very rural. The people there lived in grass huts and didn't have electricity in most cases. How they cleaned their clothing and things, I don't know. It was amazing to me because they were snow white. Especially the girls in their school dresses were just absolutely perfectly clean, and yet they were living in rice paddies, basically.
That's really interesting.
In our construction, we had we had the twin rotor. I've lost some of the names, but the twin rotor helicopters and the Sikorsky cranes that would haul our equipment out to a site, and that was interesting working around those. Most of the construction workers would not carry M16s because there was so much sand and dust. You couldn't even get the slide back on them. So they carried M14s, which were gas operated, and the equipment operators would do that. At the end of the day, we would clean our weapons because you couldn't even open them, working around those helicopters all the time. And so, but it was kind of interesting with the equipment we had. We had to, like a dozer, we'd have to split and take the tracks and the blade on one load and the tractor on the other load, and things like that. But we'd get on a job site and put it back together and start working. And I had to do most of the design work on the jobs, right? If you went out and gathered information in the field ahead of time, then the whole area would be a minefield when you started working. And at night we would just move all our equipment into one area and build berms, and that was our perimeter. And then the next day we'd have to clear the mines from the job site, but that was fairly easy because you could see where they dug the hole. And on Highway 1, which went from Cameron Bay all the way to Da Nang, we had a certain section of that we had to clear every morning, and it was pretty tough to see some of those because there's potholes everywhere anyhow. And so once in a while a truck would hit one of them, but they were nothing like the mines that are in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're much more powerful. In fact, most of the mines that we ran across in Vietnam were American-made mines. The Chinese mines generally didn't explode.
How did that feel, I guess, running across American-made mines? Did that...
Well, we didn't think too much of it because they captured some of it, and some of it was acquired probably through the black market, I don't know. But it actually, to those of us that were clearing the mines, it felt good because we knew how to disarm an American-made mine. But the Chinese mines were, you had to figure out what to do. But so it really didn't bother us too much. It's just part of war, I guess. You see things that came from your own munitions. There was so many different. I mean, the people in Vietnam are so innovative when it comes to building things. Some of our ammunition boxes that the artillery came in, they would take those and build beautiful furniture out of them, and it was amazing to me.
Such as what?
Pardon?
What type of furniture? What would you see?
Oh, like cabinets or dish cabinets or things like that.
Turned out from crates.
Yeah. Well, an ammunition box that, say, 105 millimeter artillery round, they're nailed together with blunt nails. They're all nailed with machine-driven nails, and it's extremely hard to get them apart without breaking the wood. But they managed to do that and build things with it. Of course, they build things that we didn't want them to build too, I'm sure. There was a lot of that type of lumber. They didn't have much in the way of building materials in that area. Just about everything they did was with grass huts and things like that. The little kids were amazing to me. They could do things that you wouldn't expect them to do, like climb a coconut tree and get a coconut down for, a coin or something like that. And they might only be 4 years old. But the little kids were so independent. They could survive on their own, I think. And I enjoyed dealing with them because they were happy and cheerful. And
Would you ever entertain the idea of going back?
Oh, I'd love to, but it's expensive, and there's a lot of walking, and I'm not very good at that.
But if
Yeah.
you could, you'd
I
enjoy
probably would, yeah. Yeah. It's from talking to some of the people that have gone back over there. The Vietnamese people that are still there are so friendly, even though it's a communist country now, but they're friendly, and I'd want to go into the area and see how much it's changed, you know. I worked with a lot of different types of units. I was with a Green Beret unit at one time for a week or two, building an air landing zone place for helicopters, and they had a group of Montegard soldiers with them. They were a whole family. I mean, they were all they were very family oriented, and those soldiers, those people were very dependable and trustworthy. Where some of the South Vietnamese units weren't that trustworthy.